important there. So, next one. Assess. Let me say a couple more things before I go into that one. Sorry, I'm just remembering. Some of the things that we do, we have something called advisory, which is an extra class time where we work on some of these skills separately. So we do things like 60-second speeches. Get up and talk for yourself about 60 seconds. It's not graded. It's not scored in any way. But then we do a critique process with it. But we get them up in front of their peers, especially for the kids who are scared to death of that, where there's no pressure. You're not being graded anything. So we build in and we do all these things to help students learn how to present not under pressure. So again, none of these things just magically happen. You have to teach them. So if you're going to assess them, which we do, and by the way, our breakdown is these are each 10% of the grade, content 60. So that's how we've broken it down this year, and every year we switch it up a little bit. So none of this is set in stone or perfect. It's a process that we're still figuring out and growing on, but we believe these are so important that we don't want to not assess them. Because the content, as much as I love social studies, and really, this is the social studies skill I want. Don't be a puppet to everything you hear and read. If you can do this, then I'm winning. So, anyway, just want to emphasize that we teach this stuff. We don't just expect it to happen. Assessment. We got a wide variety of things on here. Some of my favorites, like common assessments and standardized tests, love those. But wide variety of assessments. In PBL, there's room for all of these. Okay? So I think formative assessments are really important. And just like, so you know, to be transparent about this, work time here is the majority of time in my classroom. When I'm going around and helping you, that's the same exact thing I'm doing in my classroom. What are you guys researching? You're working on a project, so I'm asking about that. With my students, it's what are you researching? What are you stuck on? Tell me about this. I'm informally assessing every day, all the time. It's conversations. And I'm not putting that in the grade book, but that's where I know, and that's where I know, hey, they don't get this. We better do a workshop on it tomorrow, whether they ask for it or not sometimes. So the assessment is every day, all the day, which you guys are probably doing that also, but in PBL, since you're not up here talking all the time, you really can get a pulse of where kids are at. And so you basically can use any strategy that you use, already use. You can use exit tickets. You can use entry tickets. You know, some people do that for knows or needs to knows. What did you learn today? You can have them fill out the project. You can use a project management log to check and see where they're at. Highly recommend if you're doing a 3 or 4 week project that you break it down and have checkpoints in between so you don't see their product at the end, because it might be terrible and then you feel like you wasted your time. So having checkpoints in between is very useful for assessment. And really, we try as much as possible to make that project, that final piece, the content assessment. But to be honest, like we're doing PSAs for the Cold War, I'm assessing like 6 social studies standards on this. There's no way I can expect them to put that in there. So I'm having them do some journals along the way. We're going to do a simulation of the Cuban Missile Crisis. They'll write a journal afterwards. That'll be their assessment for that standard. McCarthyism, they're going to write a journal. I'm doing a multiple choice test because I hate them. This is really hard for me to say, but I can't have them write and grade everything. I feel like an English teacher sometimes. So even though it's not my favorite assessment for management, sometimes I do that. So you can have any kind of assessment that you would regularly have, but you try to put it and make it part of the PBL process. And as much as possible, embed it in the final project. The Common Craft videos that we showed you where they cut out all the pictures, that one, total assessment was the final video. And they had to have all their content in it. So as much as possible, we try and do that. But we also don't want to make the authentic project not real by forcing it, if that balance makes sense. So sometimes our audience, it doesn't really, you can't assess it all separately. So, okay, questions on any of that?